This video contains spoilers for a lot of popular shows. Alright, I'll admit I haven't watched that many TV shows from beginning to end. At least I don't think I have, relative to other people. But of all the ones I have watched, there have only been two that I have seen that have been consistently great from beginning to end. And those two shows are Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. Okay, I'm just kidding. And you probably knew I was kidding from the thumbnail. The two consistently great shows I've seen are Avatar: The Last Airbender and Breaking Bad. If you haven't watched either of these two shows, just stop this video right now because it's gonna have spoilers, and go watch those two shows because they're both awesome.
Don't tell them to stop
great.
watching. It's gonna hurt
No,
our audience retention.
I don't care if it's gonna hurt our audience
what do you
retention.
It's gonna hurt our the algorithm and all that.
I will sacrifice that for them. Better Call Saul has been consistently good so far, but it's not over yet, so it doesn't count. Now, when it comes to each season of these shows, I'm not saying that they are all perfect, because they do certainly have a few flaws, and I'm not saying each season of each show is equally great. But they are all great. Here, I made a chart to rank seasons of shows. Both of these shows, I would put all of their seasons above the grapevine. I mean the Great Line. No other shows would I put every season above this line. I'm not even sure if there's any other shows that would have all their seasons above the good line. And I'm not just basing this on my own opinions, I'm basing this on the opinions of most of the fans. Now, some shows start off mediocre and end up becoming great, but more often than not, it's the opposite. They start off well, and then they just kind of fizzle out, or worse, crash and burn. I came to this epiphany after watching the last season of Game of Thrones. I just realized that very few shows that I've seen have ended well. And I'm not just considering the shows that I've seen. There are also a lot of shows I haven't seen that I've heard of having bad endings. I never watched Dexter, but I heard its ending was mediocre. I heard The Sopranos ending has mixed reviews. I've heard similar things about Lost, and I distinctly remember about 5 years ago everyone saying they hated How I Met Your Mother's ending. To be fair, most sitcoms do just keep going until they're bad. So why is this? Why are there so few shows that are consistently great, or even consistently good? Well, let's look at these two great shows and see what they have in common. Well, they both have bald protagonists who master the elements. They both have drug use. There's at least one scene where someone gets high. They both have a character who gets half their face burned, although one's way worse than the other. They both have rocks.
No, they're minerals. Jesus.
Sorry, minerals. Yeah, they actually don't have that much in common. Well, they both don't have common, but there actually is one thing they do have in common that might be a major factor in making both shows great, is the character arc of each show's main protagonist. From the beginning of each show, there is a narrative end goal planned by the writers from the beginning for each of these main protagonists. For Aang, it's him developing into a fully realized avatar and defeating the Fire Lord. For Walter White, it was turning him from a meek chemistry teacher into Scarface and defeating the Drug Lord. The Drug Lords. The other ones, because he was also one. Nah, but seriously, look how Vince Gilligan puts it.
Sort of glib one-sentence pitch was, we're going to take Mr. Chips and we're going to turn him into Scarface.
I think the idea of having this narrative end goal for the main protagonist ensures that the show has an end in sight, and it won't just go on forever and get bad. Although a show is allowed to be bad if it's Breaking Bad. But yeah, the main idea of the entire stories of both of these shows was determined from the beginning, even if all the details weren't. It's actually quite surprising how much of Breaking Bad wasn't planned ahead of time, even though the entire show feels like it was. Like Jesse was originally supposed to die in season 1, but they liked Ron Paul so much that they kept him on. Tuco was originally going to be the villain for all of season 2, but the actor hated playing the character so much that they killed him off. Those are just two examples, but it's actually quite amazing how much of Breaking Bad wasn't planned ahead, because it flows so well. Anyway, there's no one changing moment that turns Walter White into Heisenberg. His transformation is very gradual.
We are in a transformation. My character is metamorphosizing from one kind of person to another.
And similarly, Aang's journey to being a fully realized avatar is also a long, gradual process. And Aang's transformation isn't simply about learning the elements and the avatar state, it's also about maturing enough to achieve these goals.
And I've seen you grow up so much. You're not that little goofy kid I found in the iceberg anymore.
I think the fact that both these shows have these narrative end goals for their protagonists from the beginning is a strong contributing factor to their greatness. It means the story will involve these goals until they are fulfilled, and it will keep us invested until that happens. I can't think of any other shows I've watched that seem to have such strong character development goals planned from the beginning. Like in The Walking Dead, they're just what? They're just trying not to die the whole time, and that gets boring after a while. I guess with Game of Thrones, you could argue that it was always the intention for Daenerys to become a mad queen and whatnot, but they just did it so horribly. They just tried to shove it all into the last season. Now, Jaime actually had really excellent character development that, dare I say, was on par with Zuko's, but unlike Zuko's, it was completely ruined and undermined in the last season. So my hypothesis is that having such a narrative end goal for the main protagonist has a strong correlation with making a good story. Now, I'm not saying that it will always make a good story or that every good story needs this format, but there is a strong correlation.
And I realized that television, the structure of television traditionally was very much about stasis, about a self-imposed sort of stasis in which characters don't really change. They don't evolve or devolve. They don't turn from one thing into another thing. They remain in a sort of a constant state. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if from the get-go we created a show, created a character who was by his very design supposed to change, supposed to turn from one person into essentially another.
I think it's especially applicable to TV shows versus other story mediums. Mediums or medium? Because TV shows are often more prone to not have the end planned from the beginning. Because, you know, like with a movie, you kind of have to have the end planned from the beginning to, you know, like finish the movie. You can't just release the beginning of the movie and figure out the end later. So that's basically it. I just kind of wanted to share my hypothesis with the world. A narrative end goal for the protagonist, planned from the beginning, has a strong correlation with making a good TV show. And that's because it forces the TV show to have an ending and a major framework of the story planned from the beginning. Now, I definitely don't think I'm the first person to think of this. I just find it so weird that very few TV shows seem to be consistently good. It's literally just these two that I've seen or even heard of. But what do you think? What other shows are consistently great from beginning to end? Are there a lot more? Do I just not watch enough TV? Leave your funyuns, leave your opinions in the comments. Also, leave some funyuns. Longtime viewers of my channel know that its main focus is Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I have had a number of people tell me to branch out and cover other things as well. I don't know, what do you guys think? I can definitely talk about other things, especially like Breaking Bad. It's my other favorite TV show. Alright, thanks for watching. Follow me on social media, support me on Patreon. Big thanks to my patrons, Jay Campbell, Vasuk, Colleen West, and James Stokes. I mean, especially to like Jay and Colleen and Vasuk. You guys stayed my patrons for the last couple months when I did barely anything, so I did not expect you to do that. Alright, see ya. Subscribe for more Avatar and possibly Breaking Bad videos. Bitch.